Corvin's shuttle descended through the swirling mists of Vexia, landing gently on the designated pad outside the city of Alaris. The doors hissed open, and he stepped out, encased in his bulky, armored suit, scanning the vibrant alien landscape that stretched before him. His mission was clear: immerse himself in the local culture, gather data, and, hopefully, foster a mutual understanding between humanity and the Vexians. As he made his way toward the city, he was acutely aware of the many curious glances directed at him. Vexian architecture was a stark contrast to Earth's, with structures that spiraled elegantly into the sky, their surfaces shimmering with a metallic sheen that reflected the planet's twin suns. Corvin was soon approached by a young Vexian named Lyriel. She was slender and tall, her skin a radiant shade of blue that deepened near her hands and feet. Her eyes were wide and expressive, shimmering with a hint of mischief as she observed him. "Do you always wear such cumbersome attire, or is today a special occasion?" Lyriel asked, her voice lilting with amusement. Corvin chuckled, adjusting his visor. "This suit? It's standard protocol for us in unfamiliar environments. Helps keep the body temp regulated and filters the air." Lyriel circled him, her steps light and curious. "It makes you look, what's the word? Clumsy?" "Not the first time I've heard that," Corvin replied, smiling behind his visor. "But it does its job well. How do you manage your climate?" "It's quite different from Earth." With a grin, Lyriel tapped a device on her wrist, which projected a holographic display of the planet. "Our cities are climate-controlled through these. Keeps everything perfect for us. No heavy suits needed." Intrigued, Corvin leaned closer, examining the technology. "Impressive. We have similar tech, but not quite as integrated." As they conversed, another figure approached, this one a male Vexian named Theron, who regarded Corvin with a more reserved demeanor. "Is this the human you were telling me about, Lyriel? He does look out of place." "Yes, this is Corvin," Lyriel introduced. "Corvin, this is Theron, a local tech engineer." "Pleased to meet you," Corvin said, extending a hand, hindered slightly by his suit. Theron hesitated, then shook his hand, his grip cautious. "Likewise. What brings you to Vexia, Corvin of Earth?" "I'm here to learn about your culture and share information about mine," Corvin explained. "I hope to understand your way of life and see how our worlds might learn from each other." Lyriel laughed lightly. "Then you might want to start by shedding that armor eventually. You'll find Vexia quite welcoming." Theron nodded. "She's right. To truly understand us, you'll need to experience our world as we do." Corvin considered this, the seeds of a plan forming in his mind. "Perhaps I will, at the right time. For now, would you mind showing me around Alaris?" "Of course," Lyriel said, her face brightening. "Let's start with the central market. It's the heart of the city." As they walked, Corvin's sensors whirred quietly, recording everything. This was just the beginning, and he was eager to see what lessons this vibrant planet held for him. The city of Alaris, with its soaring towers and bustling markets, promised a wealth of new experiences and, perhaps, new friends. Lyriel guided Corvin through the bustling streets of Alaris, her pace brisk and eager. The central market was a hive of activity, with Vexians of all shades mingling, bartering, and showcasing their wares. The vibrant stalls were laden with exotic fruits, intricate textiles, and advanced gadgets that made Corvin's technical heart skip a beat. Theron, catching up, pointed to a stall displaying a variety of spherical devices. "These are multi-purpose tools for household use. Quite popular here." Corvin was fascinated. "Mind if we take a closer look?" he asked, moving towards the stall. "By all means," Theron replied, following closely behind. As they examined the gadgets, Corvin reached out to touch one, his bulky suit making his movements awkward. The vendor, a tall Vexian with a stern expression, watched him closely but said nothing. "Why exactly is your suit necessary?" Theron inquired, genuinely curious as he handed Corvin a particularly intricate device. Corvin turned the object over in his hands. "Well, it's not just about safety. It has various sensors and recording devices. Helps us gather data without interfering too much with the environment." Lyriel laughed, her voice carrying over the hum of the market. You say not too much, but you look like a walking tank. Corvin grinned behind his visor. I guess I do. Maybe one day you can visit Earth and see why we developed such tech. A new voice joined their conversation. Is this the human everyone's been talking about? A younger Vexian male, with inquisitive eyes and a sly smile, approached the group. This is Corvin, Lyriel introduced. And yes, he's the one. Corvin, meet Cairo, my younger brother. Pleasure to meet you, Corvin said, offering a hand. Cairo shook it, his grip firm but careful. I've heard humans were visiting, but I didn't expect one in full combat gear. Do you plan to invade our markets? Just exploring, I assure you, Corvin chuckled, playing along with the jest. Cairo nodded towards a nearby food stall. If you're truly here to learn, you should try some glint fruit. It's a delicacy here. Lead the way, Corvin said, intrigued. At Cairo's suggestion, they approached the food stall, where Corvin observed the vendor deftly slicing open a vibrant, spiky fruit. The aroma was tangy and sweet, filling the air around them. Here, try this, Cairo offered, handing a piece to Corvin. Carefully lifting his visor, Corvin tasted the fruit. His eyes widened in surprise. That's incredible. What's in this? Just natural sweetness, Lyriel replied, delighted by his reaction. As they continued their tour, Theron elaborated on various Vexian technologies and customs, with Cairo interjecting humorous anecdotes about growing up in Alaris. Corvin listened attentively, his recorder capturing every word, every laugh. They stopped at a textile stall, where Corvin admired the craftsmanship. Your materials are fascinating. The weaving technique is unlike anything on Earth. Theron nodded. Vexian silk is known for its durability and lightness. Perhaps you'd like a sample to take back? That would be great, Corvin said, his voice filled with appreciation. As the suns began to set, casting long shadows over the market, Corvin felt a sense of camaraderie with his new Vexian friends. They had shared their culture openly, without reservation, and in doing so, had made the bulky, armored stranger feel a part of their world, if only for a day. Thanks for showing me around, Corvin said as they prepared to part ways. Today was enlightening. Anytime, Corvin, Lyriel smiled. And remember, whenever you're ready to ditch that armor, let us know. We'll show you the real Vexia. Laughing, Corvin nodded. I might just take you up on that offer sooner than you think. The following morning, Corvin met Theron at one of Alaris's prominent learning centers, a sprawling complex dedicated to education and the arts. The air was crisp, and Corvin felt a renewed sense of purpose as he walked alongside Theron through the holographic displays that illustrated Vexian history and innovation. So, what's on the agenda today? Corvin asked, adjusting his suit's sensors to better record the visual splendor around him. Theron pointed towards a large auditorium. We're attending a lecture on Vexian architectural evolution. It's quite a fascinating subject, given our unique environmental challenges. As they entered the auditorium, Corvin noticed the variety of attendees, from scholars and students to curious citizens. They took their seats among the crowd, Corvin's suit making him stick out slightly. A Vexian elder approached the podium, his voice echoing softly through the room. Welcome, everyone. Today, we explore how our architecture not only withstands Vexia's climates, but also harmonizes with them. Corvin leaned over to Theron. I'm interested in how you incorporate environmental factors into your designs. On Earth, we're still learning to do that effectively. You'll find our methods quite adaptive, Theron replied, his eyes reflecting pride. After the lecture, they were joined by Cairo, who seemed eager to dive into more hands-on experiences. There's an interactive exhibit on bioadaptive technologies next door. It demonstrates how our buildings self-regulate. That sounds incredible, Corvin remarked, following Cairo's lead into the next hall, where models of buildings pulsated and changed colors in response to environmental simulations. Each structure is fitted with a network of sensors and organic materials that react to temperature and humidity, Cairo explained, gesturing to a model that shimmered under a heat lamp. Corvin touched his suit, a thought forming. This is similar to the tech in my suit, but on a much larger scale. Exactly, Cairo smiled. Maybe you should incorporate some of our tech into your suit, make it a little less bulky? Laughing, Corvin nodded. I might just take you up on that. Their next stop was a workshop where Vexian artisans demonstrated their craft. Corvin was introduced to Jareen, a master weaver whose fingers flew over a loom with grace and precision. Would you like to try? Jareen offered, stepping aside to give Corvin room. With some difficulty maneuvering his suit's bulky gloves, Corvin took a seat at the loom. The other men watched, amused, as Corvin's first attempts were clumsy at best. It's harder than it looks, Corvin admitted, laughing along with them. It's all about the rhythm, Jareen encouraged, guiding Corvin's hands with a gentle patience. As the day progressed, the group moved from workshops to galleries, each stop deepening Corvin's understanding of Vexian culture. The highlight came when they visited a music hall where ancient Vexian instruments were displayed. Cairo picked up a stringed instrument, plucking a few melodious notes. Music is a universal language. Perhaps you'd like to learn? Corvin watched, fascinated. I'd love to. With Cairo's guidance, Corvin learned a simple melody, the music creating a bridge between their worlds. As the suns of Vexia began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, the group found themselves at a small cafe, sharing stories over cups of steaming Vexian brew. This was a remarkable day, Corvin said, his tone sincere. Your willingness to share your culture, to teach and learn together. It's something I'll always value. Theron raised his cup. To new friends and new understanding, Cairo grinned. And to less bulky suits in the future. They all laughed, the sound mingling with the soft hum of the city around them. As night fell, Corvin felt a profound connection to this alien world. Its people no longer strangers, but friends with whom he shared a mutual curiosity and respect. After a week of immersing himself in Vexian culture, Corvin decided it was time to reciprocate the gesture by inviting Theron, Cairo, and Lyriel to an evening dedicated to earthly customs at his temporary residence. Tonight, we're doing things the Earth way, Corvin announced as his guests arrived, dressed in less traditional attire to fit the theme. First up, cooking an Earth-style meal together. In the kitchen, Corvin had laid out ingredients for a simple pasta dish. Theron looked skeptically at the array of vegetables and noodles. Is this common food where you're from? Very common, Corvin confirmed, boiling water on the stove. It's simple but flavorful. Let's start with chopping vegetables. Cairo, want to help with that? Cairo nodded enthusiastically, taking up a knife and beginning to chop tomatoes. The process was clumsy at first, but under Corvin's guidance, he quickly found his rhythm. Lyriel, meanwhile, was fascinated by the array of spices Corvin had brought from Earth. What's this one? She asked, sniffing a jar of oregano. That's oregano. It adds a nice depth to the sauce, Corvin explained, showing her how to sprinkle it into the simmering mixture. As the pasta cooked, Corvin shared stories about Earth's diverse ecosystems and the various cuisines from different regions. Food brings people together on Earth, just as it does here, he noted. Theron, stirring the sauce, seemed thoughtful. There's something universal about sharing a meal, isn't there? It transcends cultural boundaries. Exactly, Corvin agreed. It's about more than sustenance. It's about sharing, learning, and enjoying each other's company. With the meal prepared, they all sat down to eat. The initial reactions were mixed, but curiosity won over skepticism as they each took their first bites. This is quite good, Lyriel admitted, looking surprised. Different, but good. Cairo seemed to be enjoying it too. You'll have to teach me this recipe, Corvin. I'd love to try making it on my own. Deal, Corvin smiled, pleased with the successful cultural exchange. After dinner, they moved to the living area, where Corvin had set up a projector to show a classic Earth film. Movies are a big part of Earth culture, he explained as he dimmed the lights. This one's a favorite of mine. As the movie played, the Vexians were captivated by the storytelling, the cinematography, and the emotions portrayed. It sparked a lively discussion about Earth's art forms compared to Vexian traditions. Your films seem to focus a lot on individual stories, Theron observed. Ours are more about collective experiences. Corvin nodded. That's an interesting distinction. I think it reflects the value we place on the individual versus the community. The evening ended with a lesson in stargazing, something Corvin was passionate about. He set up a small telescope on the balcony, pointing it towards the visible constellations. Back on Earth, we have different constellations. Here, let me show you some that might be similar. Cairo, Theron, and Lyriel took turns peering through the telescope, listening as Corvin described the myths and stories associated with each constellation from Earth. It's amazing to think about how people on two different worlds look up at the stars and tell stories about them, Lyriel mused. Yeah, it makes the universe feel a little smaller, doesn't it? Corvin replied, a thoughtful look crossing his face. As the night drew to a close, the group felt a stronger bond had been formed, not just between a human and his alien hosts, but among kindred spirits who had shared a piece of themselves. This was a wonderful evening, Corvin, Theron said warmly as they prepared to leave. Thank you for sharing your world with us. My pleasure, Corvin responded. I'm looking forward to learning even more about Vexia. As they departed, Corvin felt a deep satisfaction. The night had not only been about sharing Earth's cultures, but about deepening the connections that make interstellar relations so rewarding. Lyriel had been hinting at a significant Vexian festival for days, and as it approached, she extended an invitation to Corvin to join the celebration, which honored the harmonious connection between Vexian society and their natural world. The festival, known as the Veil of Harmony, was an event where all attendees were encouraged to wear minimal attire to symbolically show their vulnerability and trust towards nature and each other. This festival is about shedding barriers, Lyriel explained as she, Corvin, Theron, and Cairo walked towards the celebration grounds early that evening. It's a chance to be one with our environment, to show that we have no fears or secrets from each other. Corvin, clad in his usual armor, felt a pang of anxiety at the thought. I'm not sure I'm ready to be quite so exposed, he admitted. Cairo laughed, clapping him on the back. Don't worry, Corvin. We're all friends here. And besides, it's all about experiencing Vexia as we do. Theron, more understanding, nodded. It's okay to feel uncertain, Corvin, but trust us, it's a liberating experience. As they reached the venue, the area was alive with music and soft lights, the air perfumed with the scents of flowering vines that were strung around. Vexians of all ages mingled, their light garments fluttering in the gentle breeze. Corvin watched as his friends blended into the crowd, their bodies moving gracefully in the dim lighting, almost part of the natural landscape itself. He took a deep breath, reaching for the clasps of his armor. All right, I think I'm ready to try this. One by one, he removed the pieces of his bulky suit, folding them neatly to the side. As the last piece came off, he stood in simple, lightweight clothing, similar to what the Vexians wore. A cool breeze brushed against his skin, making him shiver slightly, but there was also a strange relief in shedding his armored shell. Lyriel, noticing his transformation, came over with a smile. There, isn't that better? Now you're truly one of us, even if just for tonight. Corvin couldn't help but return her smile. It feels different, but good. Come on, let's join the others, Lyriel said, taking his hand and leading him into the heart of the festival. They danced to soft, rhythmic music, the ground beneath their feet cool and soft. Corvin felt a connection not just to the people but to the planet itself. He was more aware of the scents, the sounds, and the subtle vibrations of the earth. During a quieter moment, Theron joined him with a drink made from local fruits. It's a tradition to drink Jorinth juice at this festival. It's said to enhance one's feeling of connection. Corvin took a sip, the flavor both sweet and tart on his tongue. That's delicious, he remarked, feeling more at ease. As the night deepened, Cairo engaged Corvin in a discussion about Earth's environmental festivals. Do you have events like this? We do, but nothing quite so immersive, Corvin shared. It's fascinating how your festivals are both a celebration and a form of communion with nature. That's the essence of the Veil of Harmony, Cairo explained. We celebrate to remind ourselves of our place within the natural world, not apart from it. The festival continued under the moonlit sky, and Corvin found himself more relaxed and open than he had been since arriving on Vexia. He was no longer the armored outsider but a participant in a shared experience, reveling in the shared trust and openness of his new friends and their culture. As the festival drew to a close, Lyriel and Corvin sat watching the fading lights. Thank you for tonight, Corvin said earnestly. For the first time since I've arrived, I feel like I wasn't just observing Vexia, but truly experiencing it. Lyriel squeezed his hand. And we're glad to see you without barriers, Corvin. You're always welcome among us, with or without your armor. They sat together in companionable silence, watching as the last of the festival-goers departed, the night wrapping around them like a soft cloak. The festival might have ended, but for Corvin, a new chapter in his Vexian journey had just begun. The following morning, Corvin found himself lingering in the quiet streets of Alaris, still reflecting on the transformative experience of the Veil of Harmony Festival. The feeling of vulnerability had been startling at first, but it had opened him to a side of Vexian culture that no textbook or training could have captured. As he wandered, he was joined by Theron and Cairo, who greeted him with broad smiles. "There you are, Corvin," Theron said, clapping him on the shoulder. "We thought you might still be recovering from last night's festivities." Corvin laughed, shaking his head. "I have to admit, it was unexpected, but incredible. I can see why you value the festival so much." Cairo smirked. "I was half expecting you to run back to your suit the moment it ended, but you stayed with us. Guess I'm adapting." Corvin shrugged, though he felt a real sense of accomplishment. "Speaking of adaptation, what's on today's agenda? I feel like there's still so much I haven't seen." Theron exchanged a look with Cairo, a subtle smile passing between them. "Well," Theron said slowly, "we thought you might be ready for a different kind of experience." "Different how?" Corvin asked, intrigued. "Why don't we show you instead?" Cairo replied, leading the way out of the city center and toward the nearby mountain range that bordered Alaris. They walked for some time, enjoying the fresh morning air as they ventured away from the city's noise. After about an hour, they reached a secluded spot along the mountainside, where a series of rock formations jutted out, forming natural pools filled with clear, cool water. "This is one of our hidden retreats," Theron explained, gesturing to the tranquil pools surrounded by greenery. "It's a place where we come to relax and unwind. No crowds, no structures, just nature." Corvin raised an eyebrow, taking in the peaceful surroundings. "You mean like a natural spa?" "Exactly," Cairo grinned. "We figured you might enjoy a proper Vexian relaxation ritual after last night." Corvin looked at them both, appreciating the thoughtfulness. "I'm honored. Lead the way." The three men stripped down to their bathing garments and waded into the water, which was surprisingly warm despite its mountain setting. The minerals in the pools glowed faintly, casting a soft, otherworldly light around them. "So, do you have places like this on Earth?" Theron asked, leaning back against a rock ledge. "Some, but not quite like this," Corvin admitted, closing his eyes as he relaxed into the warm water. "We have hot springs and spas, but they're usually more commercial. This feels untouched, natural." Cairo chuckled. "That's the point. It's meant to remind us of our bond with nature, just like the festival." They soaked in silence for a while, the only sounds being the trickling of water and the occasional bird call. Corvin felt his mind clearing, his worries fading. This place, with its stillness and beauty, felt like a world apart. After a while, Theron broke the silence. "Corvin, now that you've seen more of our way of life, what's your impression of Vexia?" Corvin considered the question carefully. "I think what stands out most is how seamlessly you blend with your environment. Everything from your architecture to your traditions seems rooted in a respect for nature and a sense of unity with each other. That's the core of our values," Cairo agreed, leaning back in the water. "It's how we were taught to live, and it's something we protect fiercely." "Earth could learn a lot from Vexia," Corvin admitted. "Our cities are often disconnected from the natural world. We've made progress, but there's still a long way to go." Theron nodded thoughtfully. "Well, perhaps this exchange can be the beginning of a better understanding between our worlds. But tell me, Corvin, what do you miss most about Earth?" The question took Corvin by surprise. He thought for a moment, staring at the rippling surface of the water. "Honestly, it's the simple things. The smell of rain, the taste of certain foods, the way the sun looks when it sets over the ocean. Those little details you don't think about until they're far away." Cairo nodded, his expression understanding. "That's how it is with home, isn't it? You only realize how much it means to you when you're away from it. Exactly, Corvin replied, smiling. But being here, with you both, experiencing your traditions and seeing your world, I feel like I've found a second home in a way. The conversation drifted to lighter topics as they shared stories about their childhoods, laughing over silly mishaps and the occasional embarrassing memory. Despite coming from vastly different worlds, Corvin felt a genuine kinship with Theron and Cairo. They were no longer just his hosts. They had become his friends. As they stepped out of the pools to dry off, Cairo looked at Corvin with a mischievous grin. So, Corvin, since you've survived the festival and the retreat, are you ready for one final challenge? Corvin raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Challenge? I thought we were relaxing here. Not everything has to be serious, Theron chuckled. But Cairo has a point. There's a path up the mountain from here that leads to a stunning viewpoint. We call it the Sky's Edge. And you're saying we should hike up there? Corvin asked, looking between them. Why not? Cairo replied, grabbing his gear. Think of it as a final initiation into our circle. Besides, it's worth the effort. The view will take your breath away. Grinning, Corvin grabbed his boots. Lead the way, then. I'm not one to back down from a challenge. The three men made their way up the winding path, laughing and joking as they climbed. It was steep in parts, but Corvin found himself invigorated, pushing forward with a newfound energy. By the time they reached the top, the view was indeed as stunning as promised. They stood on a narrow ledge that overlooked the sprawling Vexian landscape, the city of Alaris shimmering in the distance under the midday sun. This is incredible, Corvin breathed, taking it all in. I can see why you call it the Sky's Edge. Theron smiled, looking out at the view. Moments like these remind us of the beauty of our world and the importance of preserving it. We wanted to share that with you, Corvin. Cairo clapped him on the back. You've officially experienced the best of Vexia now. Corvin felt a deep sense of gratitude. Thank you both, for everything. This whole journey has been more than I could have ever imagined. The three stood there in comfortable silence, feeling the weight of their shared experiences and newfound friendship. As they made their way down the mountain, Corvin knew that this bond would stay with him long after he left Vexia. The journey might have been about learning, but it had also been about connection, and he had found it in abundance here, on a planet he now felt honored to call a part of himself. As the evening sky settled into a blanket of deep blue, Corvin found himself invited to Lyriel's home for a quiet dinner with Theron and Cairo. Her home was nestled at the edge of a small grove, where shimmering plants cast a soft, natural light over the entrance. Corvin felt a familiar warmth as he stepped inside, welcomed by the fragrant aroma of Vexian herbs cooking in a nearby pot. Welcome, Lyriel greeted, motioning him to a cushion beside the low, wooden table. Tonight, we'll try something a little more traditional. My family's recipe. Smells amazing, Corvin said, settling in and glancing at Theron, who gave a nod of approval. As they dined, the conversation flowed easily, moving from Vexian history to stories of their adventures together. At one point, Cairo leaned over, nudging Corvin with a playful grin. So, Corvin, now that you're practically one of us, are you considering staying here for good? Corvin chuckled, his face showing a mix of amusement and contemplation. Don't tempt me. I'd miss Earth, but there's a lot to love here. Lyriel smiled softly, looking at him. You've adapted so well, Corvin. It's been refreshing having you with us. Theron raised his glass. To Corvin, the human who showed us we're not so different after all. They clinked their glasses, and as the evening wore on, Corvin felt his connection with his Vexian friends deepening, no longer marked by novelty but by true friendship. As they cleared the table, Cairo yawned, stretching his arms. Well, I'm turning in for the night. It's been a full day, hasn't it? Lyriel nodded. Yes, I think we could all use some rest. She looked at Corvin. If you'd like, you're welcome to stay here tonight. I have an extra room. Corvin hesitated, glancing at Theron, who gave him a reassuring nod. Stay, Corvin, Theron said with a small smile. You're family now. Corvin smiled, grateful for the invitation. Thank you. I'd like that. As the others retired, Lyriel lingered a moment, her gaze meeting Corvin's. She led him to a small sitting area where they shared a quiet moment, the dim light casting a gentle glow on their faces. "This journey has been more than I expected," Corvin said softly. "I didn't imagine I'd find such closeness." Lyriel took his hand in hers. "And I never imagined a human could feel like home." They sat together, the quiet enveloping them, each silently understanding the bond that had formed, a connection that needed no words. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the ground as Corvin stepped out into Lyriel's garden. Theron and Cairo were already there, seated on a low stone bench, cups of steaming tea in hand. The air was calm, filled with the earthy scent of dew and fresh leaves. "Good morning, Corvin." Theron greeted him with a warm smile, gesturing to the seat beside them. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in ages," Corvin admitted, taking the offered cup from Cairo. "I don't know if it's the air here or just the peace of this place, but it's something special." Cairo chuckled. "Must be our legendary Vexian hospitality. Or maybe you're just finally at ease." Corvin nodded thoughtfully. "I think it's both. I've traveled to a lot of places, but I've never felt this connected." Lyriel joined them shortly, her presence adding a quiet warmth to the group. "Today's your last day with us, isn't it?" she asked. Though her tone was light, there was a trace of sadness in her eyes. Corvin sighed, looking at each of his friends. "Yes, I'll be returning to Earth soon, but I hope it won't be goodbye forever. There's too much I still want to learn, to understand." Theron nodded, a spark of optimism in his eyes. "Perhaps our paths will cross again, and maybe next time, Earth and Vexia will share a deeper connection, just as we have." Corvin raised his cup in a toast. "To friendship, then. May it be the bridge between our worlds." They clinked their cups together, a quiet yet powerful gesture sealing the bond they had formed. Afterward, they walked together through the city, their laughter and conversation blending into the morning buzz of Alaris. Corvin observed everything with fresh eyes, committing to memory the sights and sounds of this place he'd grown to love. The market stalls, the familiar faces, the gentle hum of Vexian life. All of it felt like a part of him now. When it was time for Corvin to leave, they gathered at the spaceport, their expressions a mix of pride and reluctance. Cairo grinned, giving him a hearty slap on the back. "Don't let Earth forget about us, all right? And maybe come back with less armor next time." Corvin laughed. "You'll be the first to know if I do." "Thanks for everything, Cairo." Theron extended his hand. "Travel safely, Corvin. You've left an impact here, one that won't be forgotten." Corvin clasped his hand, his voice sincere. "Likewise, Theron. You've shown me what it means to truly connect with another world." As he turned to Lyriel, she simply took his hand, her gaze soft yet steady. "Until we meet again, Corvin." "Until then, Lyriel," he replied, feeling the weight of their connection in that simple exchange. With a final wave, Corvin boarded his shuttle, looking back at the friends who had changed him in ways he hadn't expected. As the doors closed and the shuttle began its ascent, he felt a bittersweet mix of gratitude and longing. His journey to Vexia had ended, but he knew that the bond he shared with them would remain, bridging the vast distance between their worlds with friendship and understanding.